when I think about what is the secret of working with great people, attracting them, keeping them, motivating them, I've got many perspectives. I do a lot of volunteer work as well, and so I'm always really trying to figure out what it is that is going to touch the heart of somebody. So I feel like my job as a leader is to look to the future. Some people call it the vision, but figure out what is so important that it would really make a difference to the organization. And when I can see the vision, then I can share it with other people and get their input, see what they see, what is their vision of what I'm seeing, and continue to expand that so that I can touch the hearts of the people who would be interested in jumping in, helping out, and working for me, alongside me, with other people, the team. In other words, we are, I think, all connected, and what I see is one point of view, and what you see is a different point of view of the same whole. And so my job is to try to bring that out in you, and if I can, then the next step is to hopefully the next step would be for you to engage, to take some action. So I try to define discrete jobs, discrete ways that people can contribute so that they can begin slowly and surely and then grow from there. And once you give of yourself, then my job is to say thanks. And I can say thanks with money. I can say thanks with credits, with awards, with visibility, and most importantly, by helping you reach your dreams. So again, the conversation back and forth, what do you see? How do you want to contribute? And how can your contribution not only help us, but help you reach your own personal goals? Finding people, that is, I think, the challenge that all of us have. I suppose I've been lucky in my life, and I truly believe that finding people is a matter of attracting them to you by being an example, by having joy in your life. And so most of the time, the people I've worked with really have come to me either through friends or through sometimes, let's say, job postings, occasionally through job postings, but most often through my network. And I think just the laws of attraction in the universe. I stumble upon people that in certain settings that I would not otherwise be friends with, but because I have energy and joy and I happen to talk about what I'm working on at the time, usually somebody will know someone, and it goes from there. The people I look for are people who are not necessarily like me. Maybe they share the same passion, that they want to find some reason for making a difference or some way to make a difference. But generally people who are passionate, people who are smart, people who want to learn from other people who are not necessarily like them, and are open to conversation. I think being humble is a key element. I mean, you have to have a healthy, often it's important to have a healthy sense of ego, to remind you to stretch beyond your comfort zone. But then the humility to realize that maybe there's something out here that you didn't really know, or maybe you made a mistake and you have to ask for help or forgiveness, or maybe really somebody will try to give you credit for a group effort. And the humility that comes with realizing that you didn't do it yourself is what I look for. Finding the right person, knowing that I've either hired the right person or, between two, I have a choice and I feel confident making the choice. It's sort of chemistry. I think you can see things, credentials on paper, and maybe do some filters that way to make sure that you've got the right people, so you're not putting them in a situation that somebody could fail. But hiring the right people, once you've gotten all the credentials out of the way, I think is really a matter of their enthusiasm, their energy, and, gosh, I don't know, chemistry. Competing when you're competing against the giant when you're small is, I guess, is an opportunity that I really welcome. I've come from a big firm, and now I'm a small firm, and I have, you know, a network and a collection of people who want to work with me. And often there's, I think, a personality. People who tend to be entrepreneurs tend to want to experience life in its fullness, can do that in a smaller organization, whereas in a larger organization it's possible. It just takes a lot more time. And along the way, you tend to be sort of caught doing one thing over and over and over again, and maybe aren't, either don't have the resources or aren't encouraged to stretch and be creative. So often I look for the person who's creative, and they look for me. When it comes to compensation, let's say, people, I think, will start with a look at the paycheck in a normal organization. And often we think about that as the way to reward people for a job well done. And any number of mechanisms are in place, from base pay to bonus to incentives to perks and so forth. But I was wondering whether there's any difference or how I would apply my thinking if I couldn't pay people with cash. And often I run into that in volunteer organizations. So what had occurred to me is that I am paying them. I'm not maybe using a dollar amount, but when somebody has their heart caught up in something that's important to either their own belief system or their community or their alumni organization, making a difference and giving of themselves is the first step in setting up sort of a compensation for them. Because what happens is, in feeling good about making a contribution, they get that sort of warm and fuzzy, and often what will come is a second benefit. They will meet somebody and make friends with somebody they hadn't known before, or they will see a student who was struggling suddenly receive the biggest award, the major scholarship. And I'm reminded of sort of the idea of being humble about your work and having that be its own reward. The man who wrote Wizard of Oz, Lyman Frank Baum, said that he thought that he would be a great novelist, that he would make, a major difference in the world of literature. And at the end of his life, all he had to show for it was a children's story. But to please a child is a sweet and wonderful thing that warms one's heart and brings its own reward. And I think that is what we crave, whether we're working for a volunteer organization or working for a Fortune 50 company. I have a couple of tips that I think I use over and over again, and they seem to be pretty successful. First is make sure that you connect to the heart of the people who are working with you. If you ask them, they will tell you, what is it that you need to feel like you matter here, to feel like you know your job and that you're doing a good job and that we care, that we value that. And sometimes it's as simple as, can I have Fridays off at 3 o'clock so I can go see my kids, play baseball, or take my daughter to dance class? Often they'll tell you, and very often it's flexibility, giving people the flexibility to contribute the most that they can to you and also to their personal lives. The other thing is saying thank you when you can remember. I mean, there are a million times in the day that people do wonderful things, and they are, really trying, and just noticing makes a huge difference. And the other thing that I learned early in my career that has stuck with me and made such a huge difference to me is that once my boss came into my office and I was doing, sort of what I was told, staying in the safe zone, And what he said to me is, "Have you made any mistakes today?" And I was sort of shocked, and I said, "No, I don't think so." And he said, "Stretch a little farther." So be thankful, be grateful, ask people what their dreams are, and encourage them to make a few mistakes now and then. Give them a safety net and watch them grow. There really is one more maybe key element. Again, you know, I learned this from the people who work for me, but the one thing that I think I do, and I don't realize that it's making such a difference, is I do hold people accountable. If they say they're going to do something for me, I really need them to do it. And often, and I do it in a very kind way and a very encouraging way, but I do need you to come through. And what I found is that, again, sort of along the way, volunteer world and corporate world, when someone started pulling back and maybe not showing up because it seemed like I was such a nice boss, I stopped them and said, "Now, are you going to do this or are you not? Because if you're going to do it, I need you to be there, and I need you to really give something, make a difference. If you're not, that's okay, but you need to call it. You need to call it so that I can find somebody else to come in." And what has happened time and time and time again is that that person forevermore engaged. They realized that they were needed, that I was counting on them, and that they were capable of stepping up. So that was my lesson learned.